Welcome back to the channel. We are putting in a rear axle. All right, if you guys remember the last video, we built this ultimate Ford 9-inch. Yukon 486 gears, Yukon Grizzly locker. I put in some alloy axle shafts, disc brake kit, 5/8 wheel studs, Barnes truss, and a Barnes pinion guard. We shaved it right here in the garage, and now we need to get this thing in. So the first thing we gotta do is get this Dana 44 out of our way. And if you ever spent any time on TikTok, then you see people lift vehicles up, pull something off, and then it unloads and flips the vehicle on the lift. I don't want to do that. All my weight is pretty much up front. I got a motor, front steering axle that's a lot heavier than this rear axle. So what we're going to do is do it right here on the ground. I'm going to go ahead and unbolt this axle, and then we will try to just pick it up just high enough where we can roll it out the back. This was the beefed up Dana 44 that was under here. I honestly don't even know what gear ratio is in it, but you gotta remember this was out of a TJ. TJs were Jeep's very first attempt at a rear link suspension, really. And let me show you this. Like, these are flex joints, and look at how wore out they are. I mean, the whole bushing just collapsed right out of it. Which tells you that it wasn't geometrically correct. Like when things are wore out like that, that means that the geometry was all wrong. And most of us know that the geometry wasn't right on the TJ Wrangler. What I'm impressed about is I've just picked this car up, pulled the rear axle out. I have no gas tank, no nothing, and it is still sitting here without doing a front flip. I was expecting it to kind of do one of these. That just means the engine and stuff is in a good place, pushed back on it. Either way, we know that the original suspension under here was not good, with parts wearing out that are aftermarket parts even. That tells you that the geometry of the link suspension was not correct. I am not a fan of 4 straight links with a track bar. I think that it just doesn't really work good. And I mean, the proof's in the links, right? So I don't think that worky. That no worky. One of the things I do want to do with this axle, I'm going to use it for a different project eventually. I bought this TJ, as in a trade for my Blazer. I cannot stand this truss at all. This truss makes it just so horrible to pull your diff cover off and check it that I honestly never checked the gear oil in this axle because of that. I just had zero desire to do it. So I want to tear all that off. I have a disc brake kit for this axle actually, and eventually we'll work on it. I know it has like some sort of lunchbox lockers in it, and I know that it's got gears because, man, this thing was torqued up. Like it was definitely geared, but I never even checked the gears on it. And now that I have it out of here, maybe we'll do that too eventually. Goodbye, Dana 44. Hello, big bearing 9-inch. The other thing that I think is crazy is I actually have more clearance with this 9-inch after shaving it than that stock Dana 44, and that's kind of wild. So now that I know we can pick this thing up safely-ish, it's not trying to jump off the lift, I'm gonna go ahead and pick it up. That's gonna make my life easier. Because I don't want to play that game, I am going to go ahead and still put a truss under the front of this. Look at how long this thing's been sitting. I got a spider web. The gnarliest, I don't know if you guys can even see that. That is the gnarliest spider web growing right there. Probably need to go to Harbor Freight and get a few more of these because it seems like these are the only ones that I can use. And I can do it one-handed. I don't have to hold it. That's right. All right, I know it's kind of dark in here and I'll get some lights going, but if you guys remember, I welded on this Barnes kit that's a 4-link kit, and this is kind of the way I like stuff set up, is having a mildly triangulated lower links and then full triangulated upper links. It seems to work really good on most of my rock crawlers. I've done it on, when I redid the suspension on my rear steer Samurai, it seems to work minto. So what I need to do now though is cut all this old junk off. So this stuff has got to go. Short arm stuff, bad news. Look at that. Think that bump stop's still good? You have no idea how happy I am that I didn't end up like a TikTok video with that, because I picked it up really slow with a recording just to make sure. So now we're gonna torch this out. Got my Harbor Freight plasma cutter. We're gonna knock this thing in the head. Also, I've been using the snot out of that and it's worked just fine. So, now they sell more consumables for it. You can get them at any of the stores. I get mine at the local one in Farmington. And it's been working really good. I can't, there's certain things that I say you need to step up for, and there's certain things you can be cheap on. This is like the higher end of cheap or the lower end of expensive, however you want to look at it, but I think it works pretty darn good. Save my eyeballs. The only downside to a plasma cutter, you need a decent ground to make it cut. Some of you guys are crazy in the comments, but some of you guys and gals in the comments actually know what you're talking about. I'm pretty sure, and you guys can let me know down there, I'm pretty sure this was actually designed originally. They were trying to make a welding setup and then just accidentally made a cutting setup. Boom, burned right through it. Just needed a better ground. That was a lot of fire in my ear hole. I think I'm going to go ahead and put these in just to protect the fireballs from dropping in my eardrums. Bye-bye. Made quick work of that. Now, I just got lots of cleanup to do. That's probably one of the things that drives me nuts about when people do long arm kits, is they just cut the old brackets off and then all that stuff's still there. Like, I want to go ahead, I'm going to get my big grinder in here and just go to town and get all that metal off there. It's going to take a little more time, but I won't have chunkies just hanging off my frame for no reason. I don't really like that. So it's not a rat rod, it's a race car.
Two hours later.
Just like 5 pounds of metal dust there. But the frame's all cleaned up, everything looks nice. I went ahead and just sanded it, made it look nice and smooth. No junkies hanging off anywhere. Now it's time to get our trailing arms. Now if you guys remember the video where we made our trailing arms, I need to go ahead and put these bushings up front. And there's two thoughts to this. I mean, you can always use white lithium grease in here, but because I don't have a grease zerk or anything, I'm gonna use red grease. I feel like it's just a little bit more water resistant, I think. And I can fill all those gaps with it, which will help keep things from seating. Yeah, look at that radness. Droop. It's gonna be sick. So I want it to ride level. So I'll have up travel and then down travel. At ride height, I'd like this trailing arm to be right here, just nice and flat. Now we're getting somewhere. Shazam. We'll lower it a little more still, but that's mega droop. I don't think I'm gonna have that much shock. That gets dangerous when you have that much shock, but man. right, we know I'm gonna have to trim out the fender wells, but I wanted to go ahead and tack the lower trailing arms up just so that I kind of have an idea where this axle is gonna sit, or where I'd like it to sit, if I gotta extend it or whatever. And then we can go ahead and figure out where we need to trim that out, drop the suspension where I want it, and then work on setting up our upper control arms and everything else. So first thing is tacking. So what I did here is I just made a temporary tack holding that up. I measured it 5 5/8 off the backing plate. I'll measure that side 5 5/8. I'll tack it up, make sure everything looks good, make sure everything's not binding or anything weird. And then we will ease this thing down and get our cut. Okay, 5 5/8. Now this is extremely temporary, so don't get too worked up. I need to go ahead, before I go any farther too, and just get my angle finder, set it on here and set it on the other one, and just make sure that I have these kind of at the same level. I could also put it up here if I want as well and check each tab that way. Oh yeah, lots of trim action to do here. That's okay though.
See here, 9 inches, so that never reached there, but this will right here.
Something like that. I don't know if the camera's picking it up there, but there's my trim line, and I'll get that smoothed out a little better so it doesn't look all hoppity there, but something like that. But yeah, lots of cuttering. Gonna be amazing. This thing's double barreled here. The inside's lined out too. That's a lot of rust. So one of the nice things about doing this, you can see, look at this. This is dirt and grime that is piled up inside back here. There's still a bunch more in there. That's what's causing these rust bubbles. So I cut this about a 1/2 inch shy of where I want it, and that's so I can cut and fold the metal in. That'll give it back its strength when it's all together. And then right back here, knowing that what I know now, I'll go ahead and probably drill a couple holes just for relief dirt to fall out of that so it won't rust any worse than it has. Not that I'm overly worried about it because it's race car. But look at how much better that fender looks. It looks like it's made for that tire now. Now to repeat the same steps on the other side. So I'll see you in a sec. So I got a few pounds of dirt there. Let's lower this thing down and see how it looks. Yeah, that's rad. Bam, skis. That's what I'm talking about right there. Ooh, doggy. And honestly, I can go lower, but I'm hitting right here. Let me move this. There. There's some stuff money right there. Yeah. Dang. Race car things. So my lower control arms are still triangulated out. It's just not nearly as triangulated as the uppers. The uppers are going to be pretty much from frame all the way almost to center on the rear axle. Where the rear here, or the lowers here, are from the frame and then they just come out to the outer side of the axle tube. So I do have a little bit of angle there. What I did, because I already have this piece tacked up, is I just measured from there to there and there to there. And I need to take a 1/2 inch out of this. So I need to keep this radius, but come up a 1/2 inch and just take it out. And then I'll be at the right angle for these ones. Something like that. Yeah. Ta-ding. Just gotta clean it up now. So I have the pacer set at ride height. I have my pinion lined up where I want it. Now I'm gonna go ahead and just tack this on just like this, and that's just gonna keep my pinion angle, and then I'm gonna strap this thing up, and then that way the axle will stay with it. We can pick it up and work on the links. Actually, I want to get some decent weld on there. That's why I chose the flat part of the truss, so I can cut it off, grind it off nice and smooth. But this is going to really be important to keep that pinion angle where I want it. And to kind of keep the axle up, because I'm going to put the straps on each side, but if I got to move a strap, I want to make sure that it's not going to fall. All right, moment of truth here. Anybody want some pacer rust? Should I pull a whistling diesel and sell this in a jar? So now with the axle up here at the angle I want it, I'm going to go ahead and fine tune my lower control arm bracket. So this one is about a 1/4 inch out. It needs to come in just this much, just a 1/4 inch. And I'm gonna fix that because suspension geometry is somewhat crucial, especially at high speeds. Drag race guys know this, and Baja racers know this. Mostly rock crawlers, if you're just get it mostly close, you're gonna be fine. But at high speeds, you want this thing pristino. So I'll knock that one, get it squared up, and then I'm gonna move this one just a little bit too, because this one's a little bit off. So I'll knock the lower and get it squared up, and then we'll be in pretty good shape. But I think I am going to take a little break. I know this doesn't look like I've done a lot so far to this point, but the time that it took to do all the cutting and all the grinding has eaten up a good chunk of my day, and it's like 4 o'clock and I haven't eaten today, so I think I'm gonna go eat. Then I'll come back out. All right, got that. Don't headbutt stuff. All right, got this one fixed. Now what I want to do is get my second interior one lined up, and then I will match that side to this side. So it's pretty straightforward. I'll get these tacked on. I'll show you what I did. First thing I did actually is took my tape measure and measured from here to here. I have 2 1/4 inches. I measured here to here, and I have 2 1/4 inches. Then I took my tabs and made sure this one on the back end there over here was 26.8. That one ended up being 27.1, which is close enough. They're at the right distance apart, but I messed up here. Look at my gap. That's too big of a gap. I don't want to fill that. And you can see it's the same over here. So that means I'm gonna make 2 new tabs, weld 2 new washers to it, and then I'll take a 1/4 inch instead of a 1/2 inch off it, and we should be good. But you can see here, everything is nice and lined up in order. It's hard to tell with that there, but there you go. And just the way custom fabrication works, it's custom fabrication. So this time I went ahead and cleaned the washers off a little bit. Hopefully they'll weld better. We'll go ahead and burn these on, and then I gotta notch that. Do it all again. Made some new ones, took a 1/4 inch out. See if that does the tricky trick here. Oh, it's getting dark in here. All right, let's do it again. All right, trimmed out a little more. Should be good. Better be good. Oh yeah, much better. Well, see, no more gappy gap. All right, now I'll just match the other side and tack it in. Ooh, hitting my head on everything. Everything's tacked in there, nothing fancy. I want to make plates or gussets that go off of here or a plate off the top, probably something along those lines. So I'm not sure how much I want to weld on that yet until I get my plate in there, and then we can figure it out. But either way, we got them tacked in, which is a good thing. And every one of my flashlights has now died. So I think I'm calling it a night. It's dark out. And I'm gonna put all these on the charger tonight. Anyway, you can see it's sitting like I wanted it to. The arm is level with the frame. So that's a lot to still come up, because you got to figure it tapers down and then goes flat. So that's a big swing coming up before it even get anywhere near the frame. Of course, I'm going to have that notched out for the shock anyway, because now all the frame from here back is going away because the shock is going right here. We have lower arms tacked in, and we have our pinion angle set, and the axle is sitting there. So the next thing we gotta do is our uppers. And our uppers, we're gonna do in the morning. And it's a new day. Let's get this thing going. Ugh. Now, here is my upper control arm bracket. And you can see I have 3 different link mounts here, positions that I can put it on. I actually personally like having the anti-squat link on my upper link. So I like it going up, which is what this one will do, going up to here at this truss. With that being said, we need to make a straight line across here and cut this body out this way so that we have enough room for those links to function if for some reason I need to change the link heights on this rear link. So that's where we're gonna start. Neat. All right, so we got our openings cut out for our upper control arms. Now I went ahead and measured the center of the axle, so it's offset just a little bit of the actual center here, what you'd think would be the center. And now we can get these set up so I got kind of an idea of where I want them, you know, because I'm going to have my weld washer ones, I want them back to back like that, and then obviously the second ones. I might bring it out just a little bit just for be able to get the bolts and nuts in and stuff, but it's going to be really solid triangulation. So I don't really want to guess my upper control arm lengths and then mess up and have to re-weld them. So I went out back, grabbed some poo pipe. We're gonna make this thing work. What I just did is set this up there, took a measurement center to center from all 3 holes. The shortest length, depending on if I have to adjust it, is 48 3/4. So that's center to center, minus obviously the heim and the weld-in bung. So let me show you how we're gonna do this. Now from Barnes 4-wheel drive, I have 2 sets of heims. I have right hand and left hand, and you can see here I got the nut and the bung. This is a left hand. You see the little notches in there and the notch in that weld-in bung? That means it's a left hand. If you see this without any like that, it's a right hand. So easy way to figure that out. And then we're gonna go ahead and put a left hand and right hand on each piece. That way I can adjust it in and out without having to take it apart. So with this threaded in, knowing that that's going to be my shortest length, that's 3 1/4. I did give myself about 1/4 to 1/2 inch each way to suck it in even more. For some reason I messed up on my measurements, but I feel like that's going to be more than enough to get it where I want it. So with 3 1/4, double that up at 6 1/2. We're going to take our 48 3/4 minus 6 1/2 and cut it out of our 1 1/2 poop pipe. Perfect. Nothing like some plastic PVC to make a link out of. Not for pressure. All right, now never mind this bar here. This is just to hold the angle, the dangle. Here is my upper heim links. And you can see at ride height, I still have a negative angle. Plus my upper links are longer than my lower links, which I like even more. But I can adjust this down. So this is gonna be the shortest this link would be, just like it sits right now. So if I were to adjust it down, I can just bring it down and then run those heims out, and those heims are about that long. I got more than enough there. But it looks pretty darn good. Right here you can see a lot better how angled that upper link is. So, you know, good rule of thumb, you want your upper links at least 80% of the length of your lower links. But the longer your upper links are, the smoother the transition's gonna be. Your pinion angle won't hardly change at all if you have a longer upper link. Normally it's really hard to make that happen. So next thing we'll do is I'm just gonna take a bunch of extra measurements under here and then tack everything. They always say measure twice, weld once. I always say measure twice, tack it, measure twice again, and then maybe weld it, measure 3 or 4 times. You know, you wanna make sure it's right, because once it's in, it's in. I double and triple measured everything here. One of the things I went ahead and did too is I took these out and put in this really thin machine washer. So what that's gonna do is that gives me just a little bit of space here. When you take these back out, a lot of times they'll shrink up when you go to weld everything in. And so with this tacked in there, with this in there, that's gonna allow it to be separated just the tiniest little amount. That's maybe a 1/16 of an inch. That way it'll keep it spread so you can get your link mounts in and out. All right, we got the links tacked in. We've double measured everything. Now I need to go ahead and make a few plates. So I want to go ahead and get a plate here and a plate here and a plate there and a couple plates on the top and bottom of this, just to give it a little bit of structure before we burn everything together. I don't use this thing nearly as much as I should, but if you guys have ever bought one of these diamond blade cutters, like I can grab this thing right now, it's not hot, and even the cut is a lot more crisp than a regular cutoff disc. So this thing's fast, it's quick. My dad bought this for me quite a few years ago, and I've used it ever since. So you can see there, it's just fast, quick cuts. This is gonna give me my pieces for here. So these are gonna go inside there to add the beef. I decided to go with 1/4 inch since my tabs are all 3/16. Of course, I also have a 3/16 weld washer on there, but I'll do 1/4 inch for all my gussets and support plates. Now the reason I'm going ahead and adding in these little gussets here, a couple reasons. Number one, I don't want my 3/16 tabs to shear off. So having 1/4 inch plate gussets is really going to reinforce that. Secondly, having that there, once you weld this all together, so like when I burn in the tabs, they're prone to want to try to go in. I don't want to weld them in all the way with the heims there, because that could get the heims and actually melt out the Teflon of the heims. So I don't want to do that. With those gussets in there, that's going to keep that tab from being able to do that. In turn, is going to make it weld a lot nicer. So when I go to do all the final burn in on everything, nothing's going to move. I got all my starting gussets tacked in. Now I'm gonna go ahead and just burn the outside of each one of these link mounts. That way I know that they're gonna stay in position when I go ahead and take everything apart again and then weld it all up. And before I start, probably turn off my fan. Well, that seems about right. I am out of wire, so I gotta replace the wire. I'm just about out of gas, as you can see here. Guess I need to go into town and double down on both. I just searched around in my shop. I do have a 44-pound spool of 035 wire, so I'm gonna go ahead and throw this in. I just gotta zip it out. We can at least keep welding until we run out of gas. Turn that thing all the way up and let her rip. There it is. Booyah. All right, now we can go back to welding, at least for a little bit. All right, so we got the outsides of all of my tabs welded on now, along with our gusset spacers are tacked, and then we haven't welded the inside. I don't want to do any more than that until we pull it back out, and then we can weld everything all in one shot. Plus, I want to go ahead and run spaces out this way as well, just to really reinforce everything, along with out here, come across the top, come across the bottom, and really just make it primo. So now it's just a matter of taking it all apart. I'll take my upper links off, lower this thing back down, then we'll unbolt the lower links, and then we'll roll the axle out, we'll pick it back up, roll the axle out, and we're gonna do all that right now. Whew. All right, that was a lot of welding, and I still got more, but check it out. So we welded outside, inside, up, down, right side up, left side right, whatever you want to call it. Now it's all welded together. Now I need to go in and do what I wanted to do here and add a little plate here and add a couple gussets on here and then do the same here and here just to give it a little more structure. That is because I don't know how hard I'm going to be hitting on this axle. I'm going to be hitting it pretty hard. So I want to make sure that I have support for the entire thing going across in every direction. And I know I'm running 9/16 bolts. I'm on the fence about that because I went to 5/8 studs for all the wheels. We'll see, I guess. I'm going to do grade 8 9/16 and I hope I don't break any, but if I do, well, it'll be catastrophic. Speed hole. Yeah. Gussets are all welded in. We got super strength. Now I just got to clean it all up. Axle's ready. Now we still got to make our control arms. All right, we got the axle under there, letting the paint dry before we hook up the lower control arms. Now we need to cut our upper control arms. So I have our piece of PVC poop pipe and we are just going to match the length of it to this and then cut this down. When it comes to lower control arms, those are going to be hit by rocks. So I really suggest using a 1/4 wall thick tube, what we would call a 250 wall. And I would use 1.25" heims. The reason being is the heim strength of like a 3/4 heim is strong enough if you look at the numbers. But the side load, what it can hit from the side, like if a rock comes down the side, you fall off on the side, things like that, it's not nearly as strong. And that's why I suggest always running 1.25" lowers when you're building a 4-link. Now for the uppers, you can get away with 3/4. Now what I have here is 7/8. That's what I'm going to use for my uppers. So I'm using 7/8 for my upper links, and a 7/8 heim is more than strong enough, and you don't have to have a 250 wall upper link. Remember, I'm trying to keep my weight down. Now I've seen guys use 120 wall or even 095 wall. I'm going to use 1.51 wall, which is basically like a 3/16, and it is still an 1.75" tube though. So I'm using 1.75" 151 wall, and we're gonna put that in the upper part of these links, which should be more than strong enough for the upper end. Like I said, I think my weak link is probably the 9/16 bolt, and I'm still on the fence if I should upgrade to 5/8 yet or not. So all I'm doing here is putting the blade up against the end of the piece, making sure it's flush on the back, and now we can go ahead and cut it. One down, one to go. Perfect. Now we just need to weld in the bungs. Now remember, I'm gonna do one right hand and one left hand, and the left hand has little notches. One of the things I've shown you in the past is make sure that you leave a heim in there, even if it just is to tack it in. And then I usually try to use a dummy heim while I'm welding it in. I'll cover it with a bunch of anti-seize, and then I'll weld it in all the way. And what that's gonna do is that allows for me to not get any nasties on the threads. A couple of you guys are pipe welders, and you mentioned take your acetylene torch, just turn the acetylene on and light it where it's a bunch of black smoke, and you just cover the inside of your thread with that black smoke, and then none of the splatter will actually hit those threads. So that's kind of a neat trick. I might try that in the future on some of my other stuff. But that's how I like to weld these up, is get a couple good tacks in there and then weld up both sides. Now, because it's right hand and left hand, that gives me an easy opportunity to adjust it. Once I have this thing set, I am probably going to go ahead and tack those things all together, because I don't want the links to move. I don't want them to extend or retract once I fine tune this thing and get it exactly where I want it. The other trick you can do is just build new arms that are all like right hand thread or all left hand thread. It's just what I did in my Samurai buggy, because I already had the links. I'd already made everything. I knew what I needed. So when I did the aluminum links, I had them cut and drilled and tapped all right hand thread on the aluminum links, and then put them all in. And then that way, if it ever comes loose, it just works back and forth on the heim threads, and it can't actually extend or retract my links. Now here's a trick I've shown before, but if you just take a piece of cold roll and make a little hook out of it, you can take this and you just hook it on your cold roll, and then you can just let it sit on your tubing, and then you can weld it up. And when you're going to turn and weld, you can just let it sit there and ride. Little welder's trick. So right now I'm just tacking these in with the heims just to get it set. Perfect. Cool. Now we can just burn them in. I won't waste your time while I unthread all these heims, because they're like mega long ones. Well, only because I feel like tempting fate, I'm going to try this acetylene trick. So you see all that black smoke? Let's say just hit it. So like I said, we got our hanger. I can just turn it while I'm welding. You know what? I'm going to make my life easier and invite Shanna out here to turn the tube for me. All right, I'm going to make Shanna help me. So if it's messed up, it's her fault. It's bright out here. Shanna helped me get that root pass. I went back and then did a second pass, and then now I'm going to go ahead and paint them. So I just have the time in, 5 or 6 threads to hold it. That smoke trick worked, so that's pretty cool. Thank you to the pipe welders that mentioned that in the comments. So that smoke trick worked. I'm going to go ahead and paint these things up. That is all I can do tonight till those dry, and then we can bolt them up and get this suspension set back in. It's gonna look pretty nice. So I'll see you guys in the morning. New morning. Paint's dry on the control arms. Let's go grab them. Now, one of the things I like to do when I have something that's threaded, especially on both ends, is I will pour the coals to the anti-seize, because if I ever need to adjust this or I need to replace a heim joint, I want to make sure that I can do it. So I'll hit these threads with anti-seize, and actually once I have one of the ends capped off with one of the heims, I'll spray in the tube at the other end with some WD-40. And that'll help if there's ever any moisture or anything in there. That'll eat that up and it'll keep it from rusting up on me. Just like so. Got the upper arms in. Put a bungee cord in here just to kind of keep them up high. I'm gonna set this thing down real easy, and then we can go ahead and hook everything up. Let's get these lowers hooked up. Having those machine spacers in there made it to where it's just perfect for this thing to fit without fighting the dog ears on these links. Look at that. That is sick. Take the bungee cord off. We don't need that no more. Yeah. Now let's set it at ride height. Man, everything just worked so smooth on that. So smooth. I like it. Bam. And there it is, a rear 4-link set up, ready to race. Obviously we still gotta do shocks, and I need to function it left and right and just full flex it, but I don't know where I'm gonna set my bump stops yet. I don't know where I'm gonna mount my shocks. In fact, I don't even know what length shocks I'm gonna run yet. So that variates everything I have going on here until that happens. Either way, Barnes makes that kit really easy. So if you guys want anything from Barnes, if you use code COLT10, you get 10% off anything Barnes has in their store. And they made this kit about idiot proof. This was super easy to do. If you have any type of fabrication skills, you could probably knock this out yourself without too much problems. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you like this one, check these out. Thanks for watching. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Hit that little bell. Appreciate every one of you. Bye-bye. Oh yeah. Mad